From the very first Gran Turismo game, economy cars have always been a core part of the experience. Your introduction to the real driving simulator likely came in the form of the Mazda Demio during the first ever license test for the series. That moment cemented economy cars as a franchise staple, offering players the thrill of turning everyday grocery getters into high-speed monsters. Over time, the lineup of economy cars has expanded with each entry, except for maybe GT Sport, which of course notably lacked them, considering it was more of an esports game than a typical Gran Turismo title. However, with the return of a numbered title with Gran Turismo 7, economy cars are back in full force. One of the latest additions to the game, introduced in Update 1.55, is the Toyota CHR-S. But whilst this new car fits the economy category, it may also represent a low point for post-launch content inside of GT7. Now of course, on the surface, the Toyota ticks all the right boxes to be classed as an economy car. However, I would go as far to say that this single model of Toyota not only represents the downfall of the real-world economy car class, it also represents a clear disconnect between both Gran Turismo producers and what long-term players mean when they want more economy-type vehicles. But before we dive deeper into this, let's go ahead and have a look at the stats for this thing. So here we are inside the Toyota section of Brand Central, and as you can see, at least from the stats alone, this ticks all the right boxes to be a fairly decent economy car post-launch edition. It has a PP rating of 356.40, a displacement of 1797cc, an FF drivetrain, 136 brake horsepower, a fairly weighty 1440 kilograms, but again, this is an economy car, not a race car, so you expect a bit of weight, and an aspiration of naturally aspirated, all yours for 26,000 credits. Until you check the bottom left and see hybrid car and a blue badge stuck on this thing. But you'll probably pick one up and head over to GT Auto, where you might think things are going to get better. As you can see, it does have the wide body option for 10,000 credits, so once again, it's seeming like a customizable vehicle, plenty of different wheel options available, only a few are removed, and yes, you can put some pretty ridiculous sizes on this thing, upwards of a 21 inch or as low as a 16. As you can see, the width you can go ahead and make wide, the exact same with the offset. You then head into the hero categories and see that there is some ridiculous options here, including that Nürburgring touring car kit. So at this point, you might be changing your mind once again. As you can see, you're getting excited. There's a racing body kit available, which must mean it has racing potential somewhere, and it also has some rally raid parts as well, thanks to that clearly off-road rear wing. So again, plenty of options here, and it's ticking all the right boxes. But what goes up must come down, and that is where the Toyota CHR absolutely slaps itself back down to earth with an incredible amount of force. See, what made economy cars so special throughout Gran Turismo history was the fact that these are vehicles you could most likely go out tomorrow and actually purchase and pick up for yourself, or even experience in the real world. These are cars that you see about absolutely everywhere. The Gran Turismo series was always king at this. It took real world vehicles that you might see every single day, but found a way to actually make them fun and incorporate it in a track racing game. And that is when you start to realize when it comes to this Toyota, we might have actually got the wrong version. Of course, I made mention of the fact that this is a hybrid vehicle. Again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, the fact that the displacement is a 1.8 litre might just give away exactly what this car really is about. It's a CVT transmission, meaning that you've got drive, reverse, and well, that's about it when it comes to Gran Turismo. Unfortunately, it feels like they put the wrong variant of this car in. Whilst the manual 6-speed is only a 1.2, at least that opens up the possibility of customizing the thing to be actually useful and, well, fun to drive. Now this is going to quickly take me off onto a tangent where, of course, Gran Turismo, especially highlighted with the release of Gran Turismo 7, now has a clear divide in its fan base. You have your original fans, someone like myself that grew up with the series and realised that, look, economy cars and everyday grocery getters are not a weird sight in a Gran Turismo game. And then you have your players that might never have been interested in the series until the more esports orientated GT Sport rolled around. And of course, to them, this is a racing game, not a driving game. But if you're going to continue to add post-launch cars like economy vehicles, then you better make sure that your car is customizable and can be made as fun as possible to drive. And unfortunately, I think that's what upsets a lot of players. Again, if they just went for the 1.2 variant, which again, your displacement doesn't mean absolutely everything or even correlate to fun, I would have rather have had the 1.2 than the 1.8 CVT. This could have been a pretty fun, weird, random meme car. All Polyphony had to do here was put the 1.2 manual 6-speed in the game and, well, thrown it in a daily race A. And then who knows, maybe even the sports mode guys who never ever leave that part of the game could have actually had a barrel of laughs with it. And then, well, you've got everybody pleased. You've got the guys that want to play single player or just customize these economy cars into something absolutely ridiculous, and the sport mode guys having fun all at once. So, like I mentioned, on the surface, this car does seem like a pretty decent addition to Gran Turismo. It's an economy car. Again, economy cars do have the place in this series. It's highly customizable, but unfortunately, as soon as you go out and drive it, that fun factor is completely sucked out of this thing. So yes, this car could have been fun. It could have even been funny, but unfortunately, I feel like it has turned into one of the most disastrous, if not the most disastrous post-launch car ever added to Gran Turismo 7, and all it took was a 1.8 litre hybrid engine and a CVT transmission to completely kill off what this car could have been. Now, I did say at the start of this video that I feel like this car as a whole really represents a disconnect between Polyphony and their actual player base. Now, one of the bigger arguments I've heard is that Gran Turismo 7 doesn't feature enough economy cars. Again, this series is actually known for having plenty of them in. But by economy cars, players probably mean a slow 5-speed manual, little hatchback, front wheel drive that we can go ahead, customize and just make as ridiculous as possible. It's just what Gran Turismo players love. And unfortunately, Polyphony then took the economy or grocery getter tag and slapped in this thing. See, I feel like the worst thing here is the fact that Polyphony did actually try to please that part of the fan base that want the more kind of daily vehicles you can see everywhere in game. It's just unfortunately they put this thing in. Again, it's a hybrid, it's a CVT, and it completely sucks the life and fun out of having economy cars in your game. So Polyphony, this is an example of what us players mean when we mean daily grocery getters or economy vehicles. Like I said, as a whole, I feel like this car represents what's wrong with the modern day automotive industry, especially when it comes to, well, I guess supercars on one hand and mainly economy vehicles. Let's talk about the fact that this thing is quite clearly a crossover. This has been a trend for probably the last decade or more now, where economy vehicles are getting bigger and bigger and more off-road looking, yet they will never ever see an ounce of dirt in their life. It is completely unnecessary to have an economy car looking like this. Economy cars should be small, hatchback designs, or maybe even a bit of a sedan or something, with a 5-speed manual transmission, probably front wheel drive, rear wheel drive at a push if needs be, depending on where you're from, and can nip to the shop every day, get you to work and back, and even drop the kids off at school. So why do you need something this big taking up almost half of the road? I have never understood the whole crossover phase that the automotive industry is going through. And like I said, it started off plaguing economy vehicles with things like the Nissan Qashqai, Toyota obviously getting in the game with this thing, and of course it then spread to supercars with things like the Lamborghini Urus, and of course even Ferrari coming out with an SUV type crossover in recent times. Of course, I can't talk about the automotive industry and economy cars without talking about manual transmissions. They are pretty much a thing of the past. It is very rare to see any modern day vehicle have a non-crossover design and a manual transmission in. Like I said, they are pretty much gone with the wind, thanks to the arrival of things like CVTs and fully automatics being slapped in almost anything. You could go to a modern day dealership, want to purchase an economy car, ask them if they have a manual variant, and you can guarantee a stick shift is completely absent from that model. So yeah, for me this Toyota represents everything that is wrong with the modern day automotive industry, and the problem is when the automotive industry is going the way it is, it will eventually rub off to the racing game industry. Get ready to see a lot more of these types of vehicles in games over the next coming decade. I can guarantee that. See, what I'm really getting at here, and the point I'm trying to make, is that this Toyota that you're seeing here on screen really symbolizes the end of the true car enthusiast, the people who love cars, who see them as more than just a way to get from A to B. We might just be the final last true generation of car people. For years, getting into cars was easy. Magazines, TV shows, images, pictures, motorsports, and of course, more recently, even gaming. And while series like Gran Turismo paved the way for a new generation of car enthusiasts, these cars that we'd kind of been put in front of us for many, many years, whether it was race cars, supercars, and again, even economy cars, were cars that we would eventually, when we got our licenses, go out and actually buy because we'd seen it in a racing game, just like Gran Turismo. Honestly, why would someone that's been brought up around the last decade of vehicles ever have the same passion or appreciation for cars that we do as people? It doesn't really matter where you look. I guess it all started off with the automotive industry. This whole crossover everything design has really been peaked up in the last 5 years or so. Motorsports then soon followed with, again, instead of combining the environment and the spectacle, they just focus on one, so that even motorsports as a spectacle and something to watch is more than likely getting weaker and weaker year in, year out. And of course, we see multiple huge championships dropping away with manufacturer support. They just don't want anything to do with it. And it seems that racing games may just be the next casualty of this. And I feel like this Toyota really represents that. But surely the Toyota has at least some type of redeeming feature. Of course, one of the key things on offer here is that Nürburgring 24-hour body kit, which means it probably has some racing potential, right? Well, no, not really. At least until Polyphony give us gearbox swaps, you're more than likely going to be stuck with the 1.8 hybrid engine and that CVT transmission, and honestly I don't think that will ever happen. So this car is probably stuck in this layout for the rest of eternity now. So yeah, unfortunately there's not really much racing potential here. Yes, you can slap race parts on it, but again, without that transmission there to be customized, unfortunately it is absolutely useless at racing. So if you're expecting to at least have some fun with the Nürburgring 24-hour body kit, maybe even host your own 24-hour race with this thing, unfortunately that's just not the case. Okay, so it's not very good at track racing, but there is some rally raid or off-road parts available for this car. So what about when you actually take it onto the dirt or snow in Gran Turismo 7? Well, I would say it's probably the most fun you're going to have with this car. Now, of course, you are still going to be stuck with a front-wheel drive layout. Of course, drivetrain swapping is not a thing in GT7. However, you can get rally cars that are front-wheel drive, so not necessarily any biggie. But again, unfortunately, you are still stuck with that same transmission. So if you want to go off-road, you're more than likely still going to be up against some of these slower cars, even whilst you're fully upgraded. And unfortunately it can feel very limited. So if you're expecting to go up against some of the Group B machinery in game and, you know, slap on some snow tires or dirt tires, unfortunately that's not really going to be the case here. More than likely, even fully upgraded, if you do put this thing off-road on snow or dirt, you're going to be up against just normal vehicles on dirt or snow tires, and really that's about it. Whilst this definitely does look the part with the off-road kit and feels like a throwback to the RSC of Gran Turismo 4 and such, it is very much nowhere near that level. So yeah, this is probably the most serious fun you can have with this car, but again, it will probably start wearing off within about 30 minutes and you'll probably stick this in the garage, never to drive it again, unfortunately. The most use and fun I had out of it was actually creating jelly builds, so go and give that a try, I guess. And there we go, the Toyota CHRS, a new low point in post-launch Gran Turismo content, and unfortunately I have a feeling this might just become a bit of a trend over the next few years when it comes to racing game titles. But who knows, maybe I'm wrong. You let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. A huge thank you to all of my channel members on screen now. I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys. Peace.